From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's Just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Well, hallelujah.
Today with an important murdertizer, an appetizer of murder, an update on the Will Cierzan murder investigation. Remember, if you've got a tip on anything, tell us about it by calling Melissa on the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host, finding silver linings wherever she looks and melting them down into bracelet charms so they can't be traced, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. I wish I had the ability to melt down silver. That would be so much fun.
From what I understand, it's not too hard to do.
Well, thank you. That's good. That's something I got to look into. I mean, I don't have enough going on with my diamond painting. Yeah. I need to...
that is an amazing little thing that you got there.
It's fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's very therapeutic in times like this.
Yeah.
I get much more enjoyment out of it than like adult coloring books.
Yeah.
But you got to do something in times of whatever the hell this is.
Do you think our tipsters know what the diamond painting thing is?
I think a lot of them do. I know some of them do. I know tipster Kiki does because she's the diamond painting queen. And what happened was my BFF Angela, who is very, particular and picky about certain things. She's, she likes adult coloring books, but she's not like a real big, well, she's actually very talented. Like she does crochet and needlepoint, but she's not like really big into crafting. So when she started doing diamond painting and said she has a very kind of high pressure, high stress job, and she said how therapeutic it was, I was like, all right, I'll try it. And she sent me this beautiful ohm, and I finished it in like 5 days, 4.5, 5 days, not like totally doing it all the time, but apparently that's pretty fast.
Well, it's very detailed. You have to have a lot of patience. Yeah. I walk by she does this in the podcast room where she's recording right now, and I'll be up working in my office next door, and I'll walk by and she's like, she's got this little miner light on her head.
Yes, I do. I ordered from a headlamp from a company that supplies things like this to law enforcement, and it's called Pelican. It's a great online company. So it was like $20 or something, and it was a head. Yeah.
She looks like she's a jeweler.
I do.
Like she's cutting diamonds. You look like
except
you're cutting
they're not diamonds. They're called drills. They're little beads. But you take like a small tool, and you put some like wax kind of stuff on it, and you pick up one drill, one diamond at a time, and there's no painting involved. I hate the fact that it's called diamond painting.
Well, they're tiny little diamond things, though.
It's and the colors of the little diamonds, the little drills coincide with the colors of thread for cross stitch. So it's a very interesting type of craft, and I am enjoying, and it is therapeutic. I am enjoying doing it, and it is therapeutic because it's difficult. I will sit in here and listen to podcasts and do my diamond painting. And at first you're like, oh, this is going to look like shit. But then when you get done, you're like, oh, that all comes together.
Yeah, the one you're working on now, you've been working on for quite a while, and it's a skull.
Because it's huge.
And it's kind of looking amazing.
It is. It's beautiful. I'm almost done, too. So and it's beautiful. It has like a giant stone in the middle of its forehead. So it's like a yoga skull. I know it sounds really weird, but anyway, it's very therapeutic. And like I said, we need some therapy right now. We need something therapeutic. And since I can't check myself into an asylum or something where I can do, clay things during...
that can be arranged.
Oh, I know. You probably have power of attorney already. I don't even want to know about it. And you know what? If you do, it's fine.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. So when producer Mark does the intro, I usually have a word or two that I say in that small space. And I said, hallelujah, because I kind of am still a little overwhelmed. I'm still a little giddy. And this update is one I just really wasn't sure was going to happen, or certainly not in the time frame that it did. But I'm going to tell you, I guess there's never a bad time, and it's always a good time when somebody gets arrested for something that's terrible. So most of you know, and I've mentioned only 170 times, that Will Cierzan, a man who's been missing from my area since January 26th of 2017 is one of the reasons I started this podcast. And we all become aware of terrible cases where someone goes missing, or even worse, that someone is murdered. And we know that to be true, and we worry about it and we think about it. And especially if someone's missing and you have an opportunity to do anything, hang flyers, go on searches, I can't recommend it enough, because it can help tie you to people in your community. But more importantly, it can give you a sense of peace in your heart and in your soul that you're doing something. So I have absolutely heard of many, many missing persons cases in my time, and had thought, I wonder what you got to do to search, and you might need special training. And yeah, those things probably come in handy. But when someone goes missing from a small area like where we live, and a group of people just, with some skills and some devices at their disposal, like drones, ATVs, etc., when they get together, I'm just more and more impressed with, community activism and online sleuthing and online detective work than I can ever even explain. I'm a much more ardent proponent at this point than I ever have been before, and I've been a pretty big proponent of kind of the hive mind and this sort of thing. So I waited a while, read some articles, gathered some names, found some people, contacted them through social media. What can I do to help? And went on searches, and I do not like the out of doors. And I found great solace in the people that knew what they were doing and helped me. I showed up the first time wearing Ugg boots. And it's like, well, maybe you get something different to wear where we're going to be going through.
That,
yeah. And not really dressed correctly. So you get a piece of PVC pipe from Home Depot, just long. You can have a walking stick, but I didn't have one. So I got a piece of pipe. It was like $1 or something. So you can kind of brush, weeds away, and, you can more easily traverse areas that are not easy to get into. And it did help me form more community ties. Most of our friends live someplace else. We don't know a lot of people where we live. We don't have a lot of friends that are really close by, but you learn more about your community when you do something like volunteer. And I'm not saying if you're unable physically to go on a search, I get it. It's not pleasant or fun. It's really not, especially if you're me. But this case, something struck me in a way that I can't explain it. And we all have that thing. Some people are very taken by a certain case, maybe that's more well known. Some people are, and the people that are taken by cases that are small and in their hometown, those people have a special place in my heart, because some of them have sent those story ideas to us, and we have tried to cover them. The cases that may not get large national attention, we try to do, the best that we can here with our platform, what we have. But Will's case just got me because his wife, Linda, is living my nightmare. And I know I've said that if the same thing happened to me that happened to her, if I come home and producer Mark's keys, cell phone, car, jacket, wallet are on the kitchen counter and he's not here, wherever you are in the world and hearing this, you would hear me scream. And who knows what to do when something like this happens, because it just doesn't happen. And yet it does. And there's no handbook. You don't know what to do, but every piece of a puzzle is important. And even if you think you put that one aside for a moment, it doesn't fit in any place you can see right now, those puzzle pieces can come together and something can happen, like what happened this week. And in a way I just, again, didn't think it was going to happen, or certainly not in this kind of a timely way. But what happened was Daniel Cierzan, nephew of William Cierzan, who has been missing for 3.5 years, was arrested on Friday, July 31st at 4 p.m. by the LA County Sheriff's Department, the Santa Clarita Division, arrested at his home. And he has spent his first full week now in jail. He was arraigned on Tuesday, August 4th, which is producer Mark's birthday. And it really couldn't have been a better day.
Yeah.
So a lot of things happen in our lives and we remember where we were. Like I remember where I was when I heard that Kurt Cobain had died. And I definitely remember where I was when I heard that John Lennon had been shot. I was, and this is the second time it's happened, and it's like I go there all the time and it's not. So I was in the parking lot at Big Lots when I heard that Peter Chadwick had been arrested. And I was in the parking lot at Big Lots when I get a text from Tipster Debbie. And she said, "You must be so relieved," and sent me a link to the article where Daniel Cierzan, they'd finally released on Tuesday that Daniel had been arrested. And I thought I was going to choke. The first person I contact is Tipster Carrie, and who was the person who recruited me to help with the search and has been an anchor and in this investigation and so many things in life. But she is definitely, she is a force of nature and an anchor.
And she was key in getting Melissa involved in this. And we interviewed, Melissa interviewed Carrie on
episode number 4.
Number 4, that's right.
And we did an update, I think it might have been episode 64, but that was, I was going to do an update every January of the life of this podcast until we found Will. And mark my words, we have not found Will yet, but we're closer than we've ever been to getting something solved because Daniel's been arrested. So a lot of people have wondered, and if you go back and listen to episode 120, it'll give you the details of the case. I don't have to go over the details in this. This is just a Murdertizer, a shortened bonus episode because we're so overjoyed, even though we know this is just the beginning, as I have been reminded by a detective who I believe really helped this to happen. We're just at the beginning. And unless he pleads guilty, which doesn't seem likely now, but who knows, right?
We don't know.
Right. I never thought the Golden State Killer was going to.
That's right. And there's another person involved here, too.
Right. I'm a little concerned as to why Chuck hasn't been arrested, but
Chuck is Daniel's father.
Is Daniel's father and Will's brother. Will's younger brother and Daniel's father, who, his alibi was not real, and he is the person who alibied Daniel. So two fake alibis does not, an innocent human being make. So I'm not sure why Chuck has not been arrested, but they may not have enough. And I imagine it took a lot for 3.5 years to go by before they had enough to arrest Daniel. And I have a theory of what happened, and I'll explain. But so we know that there's video, neighbor's security video of Daniel getting into his SUV, his unique SUV, Toyota Highlander, that had been parked in front of the house most of the day, out of camera range, but we know he's there because of other camera footage from a local convenience store where he was with his Uncle Will. And at 5:06, he backs his SUV into the driveway of Will and Linda Cierzan's home. And 6 minutes later, at 5:12, he leaves. We can't see what is done to the back hatch and why it's open and what is put in there. But we do know that the SUV is in custody for evidence, and Will's blood is in the back of Daniel's SUV. So we can, surmise what happened. and who did what. So a 58-year-old man who's married for 28 years to the love of his life goes missing and nobody gives a shit. And I shouldn't say that. Sometimes the people that are in charge don't give a shit. And it isn't that they don't give a shit, it's that they have a lot of other cases on their desks, I'm sure. But this is the kind of case that could easily slip through the cracks. And it kind of had, in my mind.
Well, I'm going to just step in, and you're being very kind. This case involves a very special couple. Linda is a very emotional, sweet woman who was married to the love of her life. She's somebody who just, you fall in love with her when you meet her. But I think the police, maybe it's a human nature thing. This is my opinion, that the police, because she is the person that she is, treated her kind of like she was a little nutty, and overlooked the absolute clear evidence that was everywhere, and chose, I think, subconsciously to ignore her. But I'm going to say this now because I've been looking at this case with Melissa for all these years. And I just think that there was a level of condescension on behalf of the officers, the detectives in charge of this case, that they just ignored it because they didn't respect Linda. And that is what makes me the angriest about this case. And when Melissa says things were not done, there were things that were not done that just were obvious that should have been done. And things finally got done, and I'm going to leave it at that. And then
I'm trying to soft sell it, and you're right.
This is what happened.
Yeah,
is that some people in the sheriff's department did not respect the victim's wife.
They didn't respect the story. They didn't respect the incident, what happened, and that might even be a little harsh. But I appreciate what producer Mark is saying, and I will be honest. I sent an email to Linda Cierzan when I found out what had happened, and she emailed me right back and said she was really grateful to Carrie. She said to people like you and Carrie who don't give up. And what she said was exactly what producer Mark said. She said they treated me like an emotional wife. Now, I don't know how you come home and your spouse is missing, that you don't get emotional. I think if you don't get emotional, you might have done it.
Yeah.
But, I know I've said this before and I'll say it again. Linda, and I realize Linda's not alone. This has happened to many others, I am quite sure. But Linda had to go down to our local sheriff's department in Santa Clarita the following day when he had not come home. And she's tiny. And had to pound on the counter with her little fists and say, "Come to my house now." And they did. And oops, they stayed all day because they found blood evidence. And
because she did that, it turned into a homicide investigation. It would not have if she hadn't done that.
That might be true.
It would never have been investigated.
That might be true, and that makes me very sick and sad because I'm telling you, I have the utmost respect for most every person in law enforcement I've met. Most everyone. I'm just going to have to say that. So this, I don't know that we've talked about this part. I know we mentioned that we got a fantastic tour of the LA County Sheriff's Department Homicide Bureau, which is the largest homicide bureau in the United States. And we were blessed to be given a tour, private tour, in February.
Yeah, we did talk about that.
Right. Here's the part I didn't think I mentioned. That I was sort of looking around for the lead detective in Will's case, wanting to organically run into him. Oh, hey, detective. Just wanted to re-mention Will Cierzan to you. So we were actually standing in a cold case room that's literally cold.
It really was.
To keep evidence preserved.
We should say we did not run into that detective.
We did not. He was not there. And I just offhandedly said to the kind detective who was giving us the tour, I said, hey, is this detective here today? And he said, oh, you know him? And I said, well, not really. I've talked to him a couple times. But, there's this case in my area and it's fallen through the cracks. And he's like, oh, do you want me to take a look at it? And I burst into tears because I know this detective and he kicks ass and takes names.
He is awesome. He's the one. He's the guy that we look for in law enforcement.
Yeah, he's the guy you want to be investigating your case. Let's just say that if anything ever happens, he's the guy you want on his team. So on your team. So he said, do you want me to take a look at it? And I burst into tears, and he could tell it was obviously not just a case I'm covering on the podcast. It's something that's important to me. And he hands me his hanky. That lets you know what kind of gentleman this is. He still carries hankies. And he said, it's okay, it's clean. And I started laughing then through my tears. And I said, I appreciate that. And I use waterproof mascara as I'm dabbing my eyes. And he said, oh, thank God, because, I don't need any guff from my wife, if I come home with my hanky with makeup on it. And he goes, and then he turns to Mark and says, you know what it's like. I mean, you call your wife and you go, okay, everything's fine. I'm not hurt. I was in an accident. Vicky from work is driving me home. And the first thing your wife says is, who's Vicky? So, right. So I was laughing that, I had not terribly soiled his hanky, but it was kind of him. And you know what happened a week later in a 3.5-year-old case?
What happened?
A melange of sheriff's detectives show up at Linda and Will's home in a big public display.
Really?
Of we're going to look for evidence. So middle February, another 6-hour search of Will and Linda's home. And then on July 31st, Daniel's arrested.
Gee, I wonder what put all that into motion.
Our favorite detective is my guess.
Mr. Handkerchief?
Yeah. I will also tell you, in full disclosure, Detective Hanky. All I did was text him and say, I don't know what you did, but fucking thank you. And he said, wait a minute. They were, and I was like, don't fucking blow me that shit. Don't blow that shit with the thin blue line. They were working on it. So he did not want to take any credit. He wanted to say they had been working on it the entire time. And, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they were. Perhaps they needed a little nudging. And Detective Hanky said, I told him when I looked at the case file that I thought this was solvable. It was the best evidence they were going to get. So he's right. And it's a nobody case at this point. It's not a rescue mission. It's a recovery mission. We don't know if we'll ever find Will. If he is, for some fantastical reason, still alive and, maybe has a head injury and, is in a homeless shelter or in a medical facility. Someone found him and, even though there is enough checks and balances in place that they could identify his dental work, his DNA, there's ways that he could be identified. Hey, stranger things have happened. And Linda's belief and faith is something that is pretty remarkable to hold on to. So while Carrie is an anchor and keeps me anchored, Linda is a buoy who keeps me afloat when I'm feeling I'm drugged down underwater. Linda's faith is something that is pretty remarkable. So we know that Daniel was arrested on the 31st of July, and I hope he's enjoyed his first full week in jail. He was given a $2 million bail, which is pretty hefty and much appreciated because he is a flight risk. His mother lives in Oregon, And from what I've heard, the underpinnings of keeping an eye on him the last 3.5 years is that he takes frequent trips to see his mother out of state. So apparently they had kept tabs on him for the last 3.5 years, but he usually comes back. But he is a flight risk. So he has a $2 million bail. He has a preliminary hearing coming up in September. So he will spend the next, month and a half, almost 2 months in jail waiting for his next preliminary trial. So they charged him on Tuesday with murder. So we will see how this goes. It is all we can really do at this point is hope that he comes up with the information, tells us where Will is, and why he did what he did. And more cowbell.
Remember, if you'd like to support this podcast, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters.